and had the nerve to take shots talking about, in case you missed it, we won the game and these two showed out. And then she plays a reel of Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston. So you mean to tell me you want to use the opportunity to take shots at Caitlin Clark fans, but you also want to use that as an opportunity to promote Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston? Well, you know what? Build the team around them, trade Caitlin Clark so we can move the hell on. And all those national TV games.
The backlash surrounding Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever did not begin with a bad shooting night, a missed rotation, or even another frustrating loss. The entire situation detonated because fans believed the organization crossed an emotional line. And according to furious supporters, Amber Cox turned a simple social media post into a full-scale civil war inside the Fever fanbase. The outrage exploded because the timing looked brutal. Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston were promoted immediately after controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark injuries, ticket sales, empty seats, and fan frustration had already reached a boiling point. To many viewers, it did not feel like celebration. It felt like a message, a statement. Almost like the organization was challenging the very people who transformed the Fever from a struggling franchise into the biggest story in basketball. That is why this situation became far bigger than one tweet. Because Caitlin Clark is not viewed by fans as just another rookie star anymore. She represents television ratings, sold-out arenas, national broadcasts, celebrity attention, merchandise revenue, and the single biggest growth explosion the WNBA has experienced in decades. Every move around her gets magnified. Every comment becomes political. Every coaching decision becomes suspicious. Every rotation becomes dissected frame by frame. Now the anger is spreading toward the front office itself. Supporters are questioning Amber Cox. They are questioning Stephanie White. They are questioning ownership. They are questioning whether the Fever truly understand what they possess in Caitlin Clark. And the most dangerous part for Indiana is this: fans are no longer threatening criticism. They are threatening disengagement.
Get in there, man. Bro, I'm so sick of this organization. I'm sick. Amber Cox, it's not just Stephanie White thing. And this just goes to show you, Caitlin Clark is being sabotaged by the whole goddamn organization. For Lynn Dunn, are you going to do something? You are the one that drafted her. Shout out to Angry Fan Sports. He even said it. You are the one that drafted her. Not Amber Cox and Kelly. They wasn't here. They weren't here. Are you going to do something? Caitlin Clark is being sabotaged by Stephanie White.
The reason this controversy escalated so quickly is because fans already believed tension existed between Caitlin Clark supporters and the leadership structure surrounding the Indiana Fever. The injury reporting controversy had already damaged trust. Questions surrounding roster construction had already created frustration. And constant debates involving Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and usage rates had already divided the fanbase. Then came the post. The reaction became explosive because supporters interpreted the message as dismissive toward the very audience carrying the franchise financially. To many fans, Amber Cox was not simply praising Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston. They believed she was intentionally redirecting attention away from Caitlin Clark and toward players the organization would rather spotlight. That perception matters enormously, because whether fair or unfair, modern sports are driven by emotional alliances. Fans do not merely support teams anymore. They support identities. They support movements. And Caitlin Clark has become an entire movement inside women's basketball. The anger intensified because supporters began connecting multiple incidents together. Questions about rotations involving Stephanie White. Questions about roster size. Questions about physicality. Questions about late-game decisions. Questions about why the Fever appeared unprepared despite having one of the most marketable stars in professional sports. Suddenly, every frustration merged into one giant narrative. Fans began believing the organization itself was resisting the wave created by Caitlin Clark. That is why the backlash became so emotional. It was no longer just about basketball strategy. It became symbolic. To supporters, promoting Kelsey Mitchell during this exact moment looked less like team celebration and more like organizational defiance. And here is the dangerous long-term consequence for the Fever. Once fans begin interpreting normal organizational decisions through the lens of internal sabotage, trust collapses completely. Every substitution becomes suspicious. Every injury report becomes suspicious. Every social media post becomes suspicious. That is the territory Indiana is entering now.
And you got the nerve to go and take shots at Caitlin Clark fans. I'm disgusted. This is embarrassing. This is unprofessional. What do you mean in case you missed it? What do you mean by in case you missed it? Is it because nobody's talking about the game? People are talking about the fact that you were scamming the fans? The fact that thousands of people bought tickets and once they found out Caitlin Clark wasn't playing, they didn't go to the game? Is that what you mean by in case you missed it? Because the topic of conversation is you guys lying and stealing from fans.
The most fascinating part of this entire conflict is how it exposes the impossible psychological pressure surrounding Caitlin Clark. Because no modern WNBA player has entered the league carrying this level of financial expectation, media intensity, and cultural attention simultaneously. Every organization says it wants a superstar. But handling one is entirely different. The arrival of Caitlin Clark fundamentally altered the ecosystem around the Indiana Fever. Suddenly there were sold-out arenas, national cameras, viral clips, debate shows, celebrity reactions, merchandise spikes, road crowds treating Fever games like playoff events. That type of transformation creates pressure on everyone else inside the building. It affects veterans like Kelsey Mitchell, who spent years grinding through difficult seasons before the spotlight arrived. It affects coaches like Stephanie White, who now operate under microscopic scrutiny. It affects executives like Amber Cox because every decision is analyzed nationally within minutes. Historically, leagues struggled during these transition eras. The NBA experienced similar tensions when Michael Jordan transformed basketball economics. Veterans resented media imbalance. Organizations struggled adapting to unprecedented attention. Every foul became controversy. Every quote became headline material. Now the WNBA is experiencing its own version of that shift with Caitlin Clark. And psychologically, that creates fractures. Some fans now interpret any praise directed toward Kelsey Mitchell or Aaliyah Boston as anti-Clark messaging. Meanwhile, others believe the team deserves balance and that not every conversation should revolve around one player. That tension is tearing the fanbase apart in real time, but the injury controversy made everything worse. Once supporters believed transparency was compromised, emotional trust evaporated. That is why the reaction became nuclear after the "in case you missed it" comment. Fans were already angry, already suspicious, already defensive. And when people feel emotionally protective of a superstar, they begin treating criticism or even perceived disrespect as betrayal. That is exactly where the Fever situation sits now.
This went from being the hot spot in Indianapolis, must-see TV. This was becoming America's team. And look at what you've done. Look at what you, Kelly Crosskoff and Stephanie White have shown up and done. Look at all these damn empty seats. You damn near would have had to cut off a leg and an arm to get a ticket to one of these games for the Caitlin Clark rookie year going into her second year. Look at what you guys have done. And you want to take shots at the people. The people have already shown you they're not.
The most terrifying element of this controversy for the Indiana Fever is not social media backlash. It is the possibility that fans actually stop showing up. Because the source transcript repeatedly points toward empty seats, declining energy, and visible frustration inside the arena environment. Whether exaggerated or not, perception matters. And the perception forming around Indiana is devastating, that the franchise is alienating the very audience responsible for its rise. That matters financially. Before Caitlin Clark arrived, Fever games were not dominating sports television discussions nationally. They were not driving debate culture daily. They were not becoming appointment viewing across America. Now they are, but fame creates dependency. If supporters emotionally disconnect from the organization while remaining loyal to Caitlin Clark individually, the Fever face a dangerous split between player popularity and franchise popularity. That is a nightmare scenario for any organization. Because fans can eventually decide they support the athlete more than the jersey. The transcript repeatedly frames Amber Cox and Stephanie White as symbols of organizational arrogance. Whether deserved or not, that image is growing rapidly online. And once a front office becomes the villain in sports culture, every future controversy intensifies automatically. The stakes now become enormous for ownership. Can the Fever rebuild trust? Can Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston thrive without being dragged into fan wars? Can Caitlin Clark continue carrying unprecedented pressure while also navigating organizational chaos? And perhaps the biggest question of all, does Indiana truly understand that this moment is bigger than basketball? Because this is no longer just about wins and losses. This is about control of the league's biggest cultural phenomenon. The Indiana Fever are standing at a crossroads right now. The relationship between Caitlin Clark fans and the organization appears more fractured than ever, and the backlash toward Amber Cox shows how emotionally charged this entire situation has become. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston are being pulled directly into a firestorm they may never have wanted any part of. And every single move made by Stephanie White, the front office, and ownership will now be judged through the lens of whether the franchise is truly protecting its biggest superstar. Because once fans believe a generational player is being disrespected internally, rebuilding trust becomes almost impossible. So now the question becomes unavoidable. Has the Indiana Fever already damaged its relationship with Caitlin Clark fans beyond repair? Or can this organization still save the future before the entire situation completely explodes?